Welcome to the fifth edition of Monthly Connections, our September edition. Today we are starting at a different time, 2 o'clock Eastern Time, and with a different format. After an initial prayer and a few observations that I would like to share with you, I would like to then welcome our first guest, and going forward at each of these connections, it'll be my privilege to welcome different members of the CNEWA team. And so this afternoon, we have the honor and the privilege of being with Anna Dombrovska, our project officer in the Ottawa office, for a project officer for Ukraine. But as always, we begin in prayer. And today, on the 14th of September, the Church celebrates the feast of the Exaltation of the Holy Cross. It is a feast celebrated by all Catholics and Orthodox. It is a feast that commemorates, that remembers that moment in the 4th century when the Basilica of the Holy Sepulchre was dedicated, and it became part of the liturgical tradition, certainly in the West, by the time of the 7th century. I invite you to join me in a prayer that we are all familiar with, particularly for those times that we pray together the Stations of the Cross. And so let's begin by simply praying, "We adore you, O Christ, and we bless you, because by your holy cross, you have redeemed the world." Thank you. Thank you again for joining us here at this September edition of Connections. I ask you during these days in particular to keep in your prayer the apostolic visit of Pope Francis, who traveled yesterday from Rome to Kazakhstan. He is there on the occasion of the Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, but he is also there making an official visit in his capacity as the Bishop of Rome and visiting the Catholics and other faith traditions, which he will be focused on and visiting tomorrow. The first pope to make a visit to Kazakhstan is John Paul II. He did that in the year 2001, but it was Pope Francis himself in the year 2019 who erected the apostolic administration of Kazakhstan and the Central Asian republics. That's important for us in the mission of CNEWA because there it is an administration basically responsible for service to all Byzantine Rite, Ukrainian, Greek Catholic parishes throughout that region. And for that reason, along with the trip, is Cardinal Sandri, His Eminence Cardinal Sandri, is the prefect for the dicastery for the Eastern churches. We, CNEWA, report when we are reporting to Rome to the dicastery for the Eastern churches. So please keep in mind and keep in prayer the visit of Pope Francis today, and again, he'll be there through tomorrow, the Feast of Our Lady of Sorrows. Before I welcome our guest, I would just like to review a few points, catching us up from the last time that we were together in August. Then I reminded you, and since then I think you have received around Labor Day, our most recent appeal, the appeal for the World Day of Migrants and Refugees. The World Day for Migrants and Refugees is the last Sunday in September. It is coming up, the 25th of September. It is a moment that has been recognized in the church since 1914. It is important and it is relevant to us and the mission of CNEWA because of the work that we do with migrants and refugees. I think I mentioned last time that we were together, the work that we do with refugees in Jordan, the work that we do with Syrian and Iraqi refugees in Lebanon, the work that we do and have been doing with the refugees from Ukraine during the visit of His Eminence Cardinal Dolan to Poland, to Slovakia. That trip involved our visits with Ukrainian refugees. So please, in terms of what your means will allow, I would ask you to be as generous as possible in your support for that appeal of ours for the World Day of Migrants and Refugees. I would also like to just mention, by way of updating to you, our concerns as an agency continue to remain throughout the 15 countries where we work. But again, in particular, I draw your attention to Ethiopia, where there remains violence in the north. There are efforts being made there to try to have the African Union mediate at least a ceasefire, which hopefully would lead to a peace. But those situations of violence in the northern portion of Ethiopia continue to concern us. They require our prayer, our being informed, and our support. We are also trying to work there in terms of trying to bring some relief to the drought-caused famine in the southern parts of Ethiopia. I am planning now a visit to Ethiopia and the region with a small delegation from the office here in New York, and I'm very happy to announce that in the format that we're following now, the director of our office in Addis Ababa will also join us at one of these appointments, one of these connections, and that will be for the second Wednesday in November, on November 9th. And so that will help us all to prepare for, be informed, pray, and offer whatever humanitarian assistance we're able to offer at that time for our people in Ethiopia, the people that we serve in Ethiopia. I also draw your attention because I hope that you're able to continue the reading every Friday afternoon of CNEWA's World. And perhaps among the stories that you noted in this past edition, the most recent addition to CNEWA's World, was the difficulties and the suffering that again is being experienced in the country of Eritrea. As we reported in CNEWA's World this past Friday, you saw there the way in which troops forced young Eritrean teens to serve as soldiers. This forced these attempts now, which have been going on really for the last 2 years, have been to take teenagers from their towns and their villages. Some of them then wind up on the front lines of combat, something which we pray an activity that will cease immediately, because those places that are affected, parishes in particular, are parishes that are supported by CNEWA, supported by you in terms of your prayer, you being informed, and your generosity. We hope and we pray that that kind of activity will stop. We continue to remain committed to work in and to work for the people of Eritrea. I asked you the last time that we were together to continue to pray with us, to be informed, and of course, one of the great channels of information that one can have in terms of contact with CNEWA is by going to our website. And on the website there, with the blogs that you will see any number of issues that we tried to address. I encourage you to continue to try to do that. But let me move here just to one final point and then to introduce our guest for this afternoon's program. And that is, again, as I've mentioned, we try to identify 3 priorities. First, prayer, especially on a feast like today, the exaltation of the cross. Second, being informed. And certainly the CNEWA website and the blogs are certainly going to assist all of you in terms of the ways in which you can be informed as to what CNEWA is doing. And third, through humanitarian support, through fundraising. Here, again, I bring to your attention the 3 upcoming fundraisers that we have. I already mentioned in terms and asked you for your support for what is coming up at the end of September in terms of the Day for Refugees. But we also have coming up on the 13th of October, thanks to the generosity of a CEO in an art gallery in Westchester County in New York. We're going to organize there a fundraiser around the theme of Ukraine. It is going to be a fundraiser that is going to be organized around showing the importance of attaching the importance of art to the preservation of culture. And so in this home of this CEO, we're going to be able to welcome local artists. She will identify and speak with them about their work. We will be able to talk about the work of CNEWA. On November 1st at the Sheen Center in Lower Manhattan, we're going to have an exhibit of CNEWA art. And for those of you who might be in the area, Lower Manhattan, you might want to come on November 1st to the CNEWA art exhibit that will take place at the Sheen Center. And while you're there on that same night of November 1st, there will also be in the Sheen Center a lecture on the Sistine Chapel. And I think that you might find to have the opportunity for both of those to be something that will be quite helpful and a very enjoyable evening, a very thought-provoking evening, and certainly one that continues our own efforts at education through different CNEWA channels. And then, of course, I mentioned last time, we have coming up on the 13th of December, our inaugural annual CNEWA dinner. On the 13th of December, that will take place at a private club in Manhattan. We will honor there our own, as guest of honor, the chair of our International Board of Trustees, His Eminence Cardinal Dolan. And we will also give the first annual CNEWA Faith and Culture Award the first annual CNEWA Faith and Cultural Award to the past Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus, Carl Anderson. So if anybody is interested in attending these events, please go to the website and you'll see the locations and the information. If you can't attend these events, but you would like to support these events, then I simply ask you to go to info@cnewa.org. It's there in the banner on the screen, info@cnewa.org. Let me move now to this new part of the format that we are working with regard to our monthly appointments. And it gives me a great honor and privilege to welcome to this moment from Ottawa, Canada, Anna Dombrovska. Anna, welcome and thank you so much. This is a groundbreaking moment, and so you are a real pioneer. And so very grateful for you taking the time to join us. Let me just introduce Anna, and then Anna will share some thoughts with you. She is native Ukrainian. She was also, she studied at Kyiv University, where she specialized in German languages and in world literature. In addition to her background there at Kyiv University, Anna comes to us from a very impressive background in terms of her own professional life, her own professional experiences as the founder of the grassroots organization Euromaidan in Ottawa, as a special assistant at the Embassy of Ukraine in Canada, as press officer at the Canadian Election Observation Mission in Ukraine. Since 2017, Anna Dombrovska has served as project officer to coordinate our organization's work in Ukraine. So with that introduction, I could go on, but I think you would rather hear from Anna herself. So with that introduction, Anna, again, I thank you for being with us. I welcome you, and we're all listening to your words. Thank you, Anna Dombrovska.
Thank you, Msgr. Peter, for inviting me to these connections with you. I really believe that this is an opportunity to connect between our donors in US, in Canada, and between ourselves. I know our office in Canada is watching this program right now, and definitely the office in the US. So I'm really glad to be at the connections. I hope it will connect us together. As we are talking about the donors, I would like to say that our work will not be possible without the donors, specifically in Ukraine. We had a tremendous support from the Ukrainian Catholic Church in Canada, Metropolitan Lawrence Zahutzulak, who's the head of the church there, definitely the Ukrainian Catholic Church in the US, all the eparchies, the Edmonton, special thank you to Edmonton eparchy, and all the Roman Catholic dioceses, especially the Archdiocese of Toronto, all those who contributed immensely to our Ukraine campaign, and we're very, very grateful for your support and for your trust. And this helps CNEWA to fulfill its mission, to help its neighbor, far away overseas, but still our neighbor, our neighbors, and we are very grateful for that. As Msgr mentioned, I came to Canada. I immigrated to Canada. I'm native to Ukraine, so I arrived in Canada back in 2007. But since then, I was able to keep connection with Ukraine and to be involved with the Ukrainian community here in Canada, which really helped me to fulfill my work in CNEWA by keeping connection with our major partners, such as Ukrainian Catholic University, Caritas Ukraine, and Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, and all of its smaller divisions, not divisions, but the eparchies, archeparchies, religious orders. So this is how we work. CNEWA works together with its partners on the ground, and together with them, we make sure that we know what the needs are, and we develop our Ukraine program, listening to them and understanding what their needs are on the ground, because this is our mission, to help Eastern churches in all the good works that they do in the countries we serve. So coming back to Ukraine, of course, all of you watch the news, you understand what has been happening, but just to give a small recap of what's going on in Ukraine, just to be on the same page, on February 24th, 2022, the full-blown scale invasion of Ukraine started, and it was more than half a year ago. At that point, if you asked me in February earlier, would I think that the war is imminent, I would say probably no. So many people, including me, couldn't believe this would happen. On the contrary, otherwise, I would say that many people say it's the start of war on February. Actually, the war in Ukraine in 21st century started in 2014 with the illegal annexation of Crimea and occupation of Donetsk and Luhansk by Russian forces. On February, it became into officially announced full-scale invasion that shook the world and changed everything. I would like to draw your attention to the numbers. So we're talking about, we know that the war is violence, we know that it's a conflict, it's a tragedy, it's a loss of life. But if we are talking about simple numbers, for example, how much does the war cost per day? According to different estimates, the war for Russia costs $1 billion a day. And the destruction that is causing in Ukraine only is $4 billion a day. If we multiply that by more than 200 days of war, that's how destructive the war is. And because of support and help of generous donors and other countries, Ukraine is still capable of existing and being capable of defending itself. So what you do is really, really important. In coming back to Ukraine and switching to humanitarian aspect of things happening there. So the UNHCR, UN agency for this takes care of the refugees. UNHCR declared the highest level of emergency in Ukraine. That's the third level that is right now. In numbers, the war brought at least 6,000 registered civilian deaths, 400 of them children, and that's just registered on the territories, on the Ukrainian territories, non-occupied. In terms of refugees, there are over 7 million displaced people in Ukraine, and close to 7 million refugees, people who left the country, and 13 million are believed to be stranded. That means without means of living, so they lost their homes, or they're out of water, or other vital things. And in terms of numbers, rebuilding the country after the victory may cost more than $200 billion. For now, only $83 billion has been pledged by other countries in helping to rebuild Ukraine. Of course, we don't know how the situation will unfold, but this is a glimpse in numbers of what is happening in Ukraine. Today, Ukrainian government announced its budget for 2023, and half of it will go to defense. Half of the country's budget go to defend itself. And just to understand how that's related to the realities of North America, the minimum wage in Ukraine will be increased to $180 per month. That's the minimum wage in Ukraine. So these are the numbers. They talk, they speak, but that's just the general picture about what's happening in Ukraine. Now I would like to turn more to our work in Ukraine and to our program and what has been done by CNEWA in 2022 with your help and with help of our partners on the ground, of course. So in 2022, CNEWA as a whole agency disbursed $5.5 million to Ukraine and the neighboring countries who are welcoming the Ukrainian refugees. So these funds were distributed between more than 77 projects, and in September we will add 10 more projects. Just to give you an idea, on a usual year in Ukraine, we have 20-30 projects, maybe less. But this year, there is much, much more. And the amount of our partners, the new partners in Ukraine on the ground, also almost doubled. So we started working with other eparchies and arch-eparchies. Basically, we wanted to cover the needs all over Ukraine. So it's not only in the western part that is relatively safe, not only in liberated central part, Kyiv, but it's also in the east, in the southeast, in regions near Kharkiv. And also talking about Kharkiv, there are good news from Ukraine that Ukraine was capable to liberate parts of that area. And these are really hopeful news for everyone who's a Ukrainian, who's following the news. Coming back to the project, so the funds that we were distributing went to emergency projects. Even if we didn't have emergency projects in the beginning of the year, those projects turned and reshaped themselves to help the emergency, to help the aftermath of war. So basically, the funds went to humanitarian aid, first of all, that's food, medication, the basics, water. Secondly, to hosting the displaced. As you know, you've heard the numbers of the displaced in Ukraine. These people need shelter, and once they are staying there for more than 1 month, 1 to 3 months, they need to integrate somehow and make a living where they're staying. So integration of those who are displaced. Also, the funds went to medical treatment and rehabilitation. There is a huge need for that among civilians, among children, among women, like everyone is affected. And also, as a papal agency, we support the church institutions in Ukraine and the clergy, of course. Just to finish my presentation about Ukraine, I would like to mention the story of a very brave and very I would say the spiritually rich Father Yuri Lohaza from Slavutic. He's a real example of how the church serves the people, even in times of war, and of his personal bravery and his faith. So Slavutic is the town that is located less than 20 kilometers from the border with Belarus on the north, and it was surrounded by Russian troops on February 24th, on the first day of full-scale invasion. It's also very close to Russia. The next day, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, right next to Slavutic, was also seized. So Father Yuri Lohaza has been in Slavutic, and he remained in Slavutic with his wife, Irina. And his wife gave birth to her third child under occupation in a hospital without light and without heating in February. Here is what she said. Let me read. We have been under occupation since February 24th, but for me, the most challenging turning point was when my husband, a military chaplain in the National Guard, left to join the guys on the front line, and we were left alone. I was alone at home with 3 children, with a baby who was only a week old. At that time, the active shelling of Slavutic began. She also added, my husband knew that no matter what happened, he could stay with the military. He would stay with the military, with the city, and with the parish. Many people were very grateful to him for staying in the city. During the occupation, people constantly came to him, and Father Yuri celebrated the liturgy every day. Many people came to confession. So this story is very uplifting, and it shows a great bravery and belief and the role of the church there in Ukraine. And you know where your support goes. Your support goes to people like Father Yuri, people like his wife Irina and their children, and everybody who are around them. So thank you so much for your support. It's very important for us that you are with us and you help CNEWA to fulfill its mission in Ukraine.
Anna, thank you. Thank you so much for your insight. Thank you for the background that you've shared with us. Thank you for the very moving, very deeply moving story that you shared with us at the end of your report. And thank you for your leadership. I thank you and the entire office in Ottawa for the leadership that you have all exercised in terms of trying to bring people together in prayer, in the dissemination of correct information, and in fundraising. You introduced your comments by raising the question about how this is all about helping one's neighbor. And I think it's very nice that you brought that up, because the theme that we're working on for the fundraisers in general, and in particular the fundraiser coming up on October 13th here in Westchester County of New York State, is an attempt to answer the question that was posed in the Gospel of St. Luke chapter 10, when the scholar of the law approaches Jesus and says, "Who is my neighbor?" And it's that taking personal responsibility for the other that we're trying to respond to with what we're trying to organize here through our prayer and through fundraisers. So Anna, thank you very much for what you've done and how you've helped us to appreciate and maybe try to find an answer. Who is my neighbor? That's not something that can get put off for somebody else to answer. I've got to answer that myself. But Anna, let me just ask you one or two questions in the time that we have remaining. How, for example, do you find out about the needs that are developing in different places in Ukraine?
Thank you, Msgr Peter. How do we find the needs about what's happening in Ukraine? First of all, we keep constant contact with our partners on the ground. So they are there, they see what's happening, they are on the ground, and they know exactly what is needed right there, right now. So constant contact with our partners on the ground. That's how we get the picture of the needs.
And Anna, what would be now the upcoming very severe and greatest needs that the people in Ukraine have, especially with the winter coming? What do you identify as really high priority needs?
Yeah, as everybody heard on the news, and everybody's anticipating, even not only in Ukraine, but in Europe, the winter is coming. And well, hopefully climate change will help us, but not to that extent. Yeah, it's the cold and it's the energy crisis that Ukraine is getting ready for. So we are getting requests from our partners for winterization, for getting fuel, different types of fuel, including wood. The government of Ukraine comes up with the sustainability plan in case the electricity will be damaged by shelling. So everybody in Ukraine is trying to get their storage, so to say, for the winter.
Sure. Thank you, Anna. Anna, I see we have one or two questions.
Yeah. So our first question comes from Roman Zavisky. Apologies if I mispronounced that, but given the food crisis and CNEWA's representation at the UN, is CNEWA considering upgrading its accreditation at the UN?
Roman, thank you. Thank you very much for that question. It's a very important question. We are very blessed on the staff of CNEWA, in particular here in the New York office, with the presence of Father Elias Mallon. Father Elias is a Franciscan friar of the Atonement. He has been working here at CNEWA since the year 2011. And if you had the opportunity, or perhaps if you do have the opportunity, you might want to go to the CNEWA blog. You'll see there a very, very well prepared and presented story by Olivia Paust of our staff with regard to Father Elias. As I say, he's been on the staff since 2011, and one of his very specific responsibilities as one who is assistant to me is to work with our representation at the UN. And Father Elias is doing that. He is trying to increase the possibility of our involvement at the UN by working towards the Economic and Social Council, what is known as ECOSOC, and our ECOSOC accreditation. When we are able to attain that ECOSOC accreditation, it will give us the capacity to be able to be more involved. So I thank you, Roman, for the question. And I thank Father Elias for all the work that he's been doing with CNEWA since 2011 and what he is currently working on. And as you know, Roman, as we're speaking, the General Assembly session of the UN is ongoing just a few blocks from here. So we certainly do hope to be a presence and to be able to be, if nothing else, a moral voice and be able to share in solidarity where we can, those things that we will be able to be joined with them on. Is there another question, did you say?
Yeah. Monsignor, are you concerned about the recent hostilities in the Nagorno-Karabakh region?
That has been an issue that we have been, very concerned about. Where there is violence that breaks out, and here again, I would ask Anna if she wanted to offer any of her thoughts or reflections on that. But where the violence breaks out, yes, we are concerned. We are concerned in terms of, one, wanting to bring violence to some kind of a ceasefire, whether it has to be mediated and whatever effort can be made to affect that. And then for us to be able to see what on a humanitarian level we'd be able to do, what we can add. I don't know, Anna, if you wanted also to add anything on that particular point.
Yeah, right now the geopolitical situation gets more and more volatile,
Right.
and we have to be ready for anything that might happen in Eastern Europe and further in Asian region and regions in Russia and surrounding Russia. So I know, Monsignor, you're planning a trip to Armenia, so that's quite that would be. I was very concerned, if anything, if the situation would get worse. But from this historical point of view, CNEWA has been helping in Armenia and in Georgia with all the humanitarian problems that they had, all the humanitarian crises. So I think we will be involved if people would need help there.
Thank you, Anna. Yes, since Anna mentioned it, I will be traveling with a team from here to Armenia and Georgia. We're leaving on Monday evening to visit our projects there. Again, we ask for your prayers, and we ask that whatever you can do by means of offering humanitarian assistance, any donations that you might be able to make are always most appreciated. I want to thank everybody, and in particular way, Anna Dombrovska, for joining us here this afternoon in this 5th edition, what I'm calling it, of this Connections. I hope that going forward, any suggestions that you may have, any recommendations that you may have, please don't hesitate. You can contact us. You can reach us, of course. Otherwise, I hope to see everybody again on Wednesday, October 12th, the second Wednesday of October. Thank you, and please keep us in your prayers, as you can be assured of being in ours. Anna, thank you again. Thank you very much. And I want to thank the whole New York team here. They're all the people that are off screen are the people that you don't see, but that make this possible. So Nick, thank you very much. Nelson, thank you very much. Tim, thank you very much. Noel, thank you very much. All those who have tried to promote this from the communications department and all the other departments here in the New York office, and to everyone in the Ottawa office, thank you, and hope to see you all in October. Thank you.